Hi everyone, this is Andrew Tsai and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be doing a car review of the MG5. So I don't really do car reviews on this YouTube channel. I'm not really a car person, and this is the first electric vehicle I've ever bought, so I'm not really much of an authority on EVs. But since I've done so much research into buying this particular car, and I've done so much comparisons with other vehicles that are similar size, I thought I'd do a video about how this car performs as kind of a family car, how it works from moving from a diesel car to an electric vehicle, and what it's kind of like using it in London. My previous car was a diesel 4x4 SUV, and it was kind of perfect for the family. But one of the main reasons that I had to change the car was because the fact that the ULEZ in London was expanding, and it meant that from later in October this 2021, it would mean having to pay £15 a day in extra charges per day, just to have the benefit of driving a car within the part of London that I live in. But it's a good thing that these diesel cars, when we bought the diesel car, we didn't know it was a hugely polluting problematic vehicle. But obviously now moving to an all-electric vehicle is much greener. I mean, first and foremost, within the centre of London, which is very congested anyway, it's going to be much better for air quality and air pollution. And when you idle a lot and when you're in traffic trying to move at kind of low speeds, we're going to have much better air quality if all cars are electric, which there are going to be soon. In the UK from 2030 onwards, there are going to be no new combustion engine cars, so they're all going to be electric vehicle cars. So I'm just going to take it for a little spin and have a little chat about what I think is good about the car. So the very first thing I kind of like about this car is that the fact that it is incredibly good value. So you can buy this particular car for under £20,000 new from the dealership. Now, the deal that we got meant that we actually paid less than £10,000 just because of the part exchange from our old vehicle. The typical retail price of this particular car is around 24,500 for the Excite model. So the car comes in two different trims. So this particular car is the Excite model, which is the kind of cheaper trim, and then there's the exclusive model, which is the more expensive trim, and the more expensive trim is normally priced about £2,000 more. The scheme that we bought this car under was called the MG Affinity scheme. So this scheme is one which gives public sector workers like my wife an actual discount on buying the car. So the particular price that we actually paid for this car was under £19,800 for a brand new Excite trim car. This is kind of incredible value for a car of this size. And what's interesting is that if you actually look online, you can actually find other examples of new MG5 cars which are around the 21,000 mark. So you can see that there's quite a lot of movement in the actual pricing of that. So I am under no illusions that this affinity scheme pricing is something that you could probably achieve by negotiating directly with the dealership. They've probably got these quotas that they need to meet, and I'm not sure what their profit margins are exactly, but they're probably able to make a decent profit even selling it at £19,800, right? So it's just such good value. The second thing I like about the car is that it's extremely spacious. At the time of recording, this is probably the only estate-sized car that is an electric vehicle that's kind of affordable. This particular car's got loads of space at the back. You can see we've got two car seats here. Hello! So there's loads of room in the back, even with the car seats with both kids. Have a look at the legroom here, Felicity. Lots of space. And lots of space here for Benjamin's feet here too. So kids, how do you like the car?
It's very good.
Felicity, do you like the new car? So one of the really good things about the MG5 is that it's got so much boot space. So we have loads of room kind of in that boot area, which you kind of expect for an estate. You have these little cutouts here, which are nice. And then we've got plenty of space here, which I've managed to fill up already. So this particular space underneath this platform here, I filled with the spare wheel. I've also got a little bit of space for some ice scrapers and some other bits and bobs. And we have this retractable boot cover here, which is quite nice to have, which I normally just leave retracted like so. So these particular seats we can push down, as you can see. So there's definitely some missed opportunity. So it's a real shame that these chairs don't go all the way down. But as you can see, there's still a lot of space here. So if you needed to move something, you could probably do it quite easily. Another thing I like about this car is the fact that it has a decent battery level. So when I was researching cars, I had a look at a lot of second-hand models. So for example, the Kia Soul, I was looking at the Kia Soul, and I was looking at the Kia e-Niro, I was looking at the Nissan Leaf, and what you find is that before like 2018, 2019, right, all of these cars had like terrible range in terms of battery range, and they all experienced a kind of massive upgrade of range in around 2018, 2019, where they kind of overhauled the amount of battery they were packing into the car. And this kind of reflects the actual pricing too. So you'll find that the more recent cars, obviously they're newer and lower mileage, but they also have like twice the battery size too, right? And what I was looking for was for a car that could go over 200 miles in a single charge. This particular car is rated at 214 miles in range, so I think that that's exceedingly good. I mean, the closest competitor to this car is probably the MG ZS, which is actually slightly more expensive and has a smaller boot and also a shorter range too. So it's kind of a no-brainer to buy a car like this. So I've covered why I like the price. It's a very good price. I also like the fact that it's got loads and loads of space as well. The next thing that I quite like about it is just the way it handles. So when I was driving the Toyota RAV4, and I'm doing a 3.10, I was kind of moving like this, but quite vigorously with my arms, and it was quite physically involved in actually driving it. But this particular car, when I'm actually steering and moving my doing a 3.10, it just feels completely different, completely smoother and lighter. And I'm not really sure how to describe it. It just feels like it's easier to drive for some reason. And I'm not sure if other electronic vehicles are like that at all, but this does feel kind of very comfortable. And I love how quiet it is. So right now I'm in kind of stop-start traffic. I've just come up from this construction red light, and I can hear this kind of whirring. I think part of that is like the speaker noise, and then part of that is the noise of the tires on the road. It's kind of natural noise, but it's just incredibly quiet too. And I'm going to be taking this on the motorway later as well. So I'm currently on the motorway traveling around 70 miles an hour, and you can definitely hear the kind of wind coming past the exterior of the car here. It's definitely much more noticeable than my previous car, the Toyota RAV4, and it's remarkably different, because when you're traveling around 20-30 miles an hour, it's virtually silent, but because of the kind of wind resistance with the car, there's something about it which is transferring the noise of the motorway a little bit more than previous cars that I've driven. So I think it's also worth talking about things that I don't really like about this particular car. So one of the main things that when you're in the market for kind of an electric vehicle and you're looking at like Teslas and other types of cars too, is that you're looking for some kind of smart AI features. One of the cool things you see in Teslas and other cars is the kind of lane assist or kind of auto driving navigation, so that you can kind of, well, not go exactly hands-free, but let the car do some of the controlling of the car for you. And on Teslas, you can actually program a destination and it'll just drive you there. On MG's newer car, which is the MG ZS, right, which is actually an older car in the UK market, but a newer car that's been developed, because this particular car is based on an older Rui Chinese car that was made about 2017, and so it doesn't actually come with some of the features that you might expect from a modern car released in 2021. So one of the main things is MG Pilot, which exists in the MG ZS but not in this particular model, even though this car is newer. And there's no actual option to install it. It just doesn't exist for this particular model. Maybe it'll come out in the future, but the ability to do like lane assist, so that means that the car steers when you're reaching the edge of a lane. That's like a really cool safety feature I would love to have paid more money for in this kind of larger, higher capacity vehicle, but just doesn't exist at all, which is a real shame. The other thing is that I definitely feel like there is a stigma against driving an MG. So I don't really know much about MG cars. I knew that they went bankrupt a long time ago as a British brand, and they were bought as by a Chinese company, and that company produced this car, and they slapped this kind of classic British cars logo onto it, and for all intents and purposes, this car is not British at all. It is a mainland Chinese company that produces this car. And if you were to ask someone, oh, where's your car from, right, what country is it from, and it doesn't fill you with a huge amount of confidence, because most people will say they want a German car, they want a Japanese car, or they want a Korean car even. The Korean EVs are doing very well at the moment. The Chinese car market doesn't really inspire much confidence, right? And I can't really say much about that because firstly, I haven't driven this car for very long. It's kind of a first impressions review, and secondly, I have no idea how reliable this car is going to turn out to be overall. I mean, it's existed in the Chinese market for many years now, but in the Western market, in the UK market, how long will this car last? How reliable will the battery be? It's very hard to tell. So what's really great about this car is that it does come, when you buy new, with a 70,000 mile or 7-year warranty on the car. So if there's any kind of issues that are endemic to this particular car, then they will sort that out. As long as you service the car for the first 7 years at a MG dealership, then they will honour that particular warranty for you. It certainly gives me reassurance to knowing that this car will be covered for any issues that occur over the next 7 years or 70,000 miles. And I think that should give most consumers the confidence to buy a car like this. So anyway, I just wanted to give an overview of the car's interior. So I've got my phone on the wide angle lens. I just want to show off some of the interior's features. So we've got this kind of pretty nice steering wheel. It's pretty standard. You've got your controls here. You've got the ability to change the source button. We've got a programmable button here. We've got this button which kind of activates Siri, and then here we've got the kind of navigation of the actual dashboard itself. So here we can actually go around and have a look at different various settings. The actual interior I quite like. So this is the Excite model of the car. It's quite kind of plasticky. There's more faux leather trim than I actually expected. Let me put this onto the wide angle. Here we've got the window controls for all of the windows, and then I've attached my phone holder here. So I quite like having this particularly robust one that I use. It's a powered one wireless charger. I like having this a bit closer to my steering wheel so I can get easier access to it. We kind of have the vents, which are pretty basic. Here I filled it up with all my kind of techie wiring. So I've got my kind of 12 volt adapter here, but I can get more USB ports, and then these USB ports are quite important. So this one is the one that goes to my wireless charger, and this one here is for the actual technology. So I've plugged this into my smartphone, which is what I'm recording from here, and this particular port gives access to Apple CarPlay. So this is the first time I've used something like this before. It's quite cool. I like it a lot. So basically when you plug the phone in via the cable, we can press Apple CarPlay, and that gives access to a kind of limited view of some apps that we can just change in the menu here. We can look at text messages, WhatsApp, Google Maps, various music and audio players. We can customize this in the settings menu of your iPhone. So this is the first time I've ever used something like this before, and it's really cool because this is accessing my Google Maps app on my phone, and it means that if I can use something else on my phone at the same time, it's kind of like having two screens at once. So that's a bonus feature. Obviously, it's the same Apple CarPlay pretty much for everywhere else, and this is the primary way I use the infotainment system. Otherwise, it's a very basic infotainment system. We just have various settings for radio, music, navigation, etc. Now, I don't particularly like the navigation system that's built into here. It's built into the Excite and the exclusive models, and it's nothing really very special, but it is kind of laggy. So every time you use the navigation, you're going to have to accept the terms and conditions every time. That's quite annoying. I just basically avoid using it altogether. I much prefer my smartphone. I like having the traffic updates. I like having the ability to quickly change destination on my phone. The actual Google Maps itself is a little bit laggy. You can see it's like not particularly responsive. There's no pinch to zoom or anything like that. But I think it's perfectly functional for what I use it for. Panels that we have here, they're quite nice. I quite like the way that this is all laid out. It all makes sense to me. One thing that's disappointing is the fact that there's no climate control. So that's not something that really bothers me that much, because I don't tend to blow the fans that much, and my wife doesn't really like having lots of cold air into the car at any time. One thing that we have here, which is the gear switcher, you press P to park, and then you use this rotation to change between reverse and drive. I quite like this system. It means not having a big gear shift here, even for an automatic car. You just twist, and makes doing 3-point turns really easy. So when you reverse as well, we have the reversing camera here. So if I turn the wheel, the lines actually move. I can actually dry steer this a little bit. It's not good for the car, but I'm dry steering a little bit. It's very easy to do, and the lines move as the wheel turns. It just kind of predicts where your car is going to go. It's not always that accurate, but it's pretty good. The car also has rear sensors as well, so if you get too close, it starts making a lot of noise. Unfortunately, it does not have front sensors. This is the wide angle view of my kind of seated position, but you can't really see the front of the car. It's kind of hard to predict if that front is going to hit something else, and a lot of cars have a front sensor, but unfortunately from our seated position here, I can't actually see the front of the car that clearly, so it's going to be quite tricky to parallel park into narrow spaces. You just have to leave a bit of room and get used to the length of the car. So this is kind of the handbrake, so if I hold this up and it goes red, then it's gone into kind of handbrake mode, so it's parked properly. Anyway, this side here, we've got lots of kind of space. I think that the Excite trim is all right. Not having faux leather seats is not too bad. I don't think that it's worth spending the extra £2,000. I think the main differentiating feature between the Excite and the exclusive model is the fact that the seating leather is different, and the exclusive leather is nice, but it's not actually real leather, it's faux leather, and I don't think it was worth justifying the difference in cost. Supplies in this glove box. So we've got a standard glove box here. In other cars I've used, there's been another space here for storage, but we don't have that here. We've got quite large kind of space in the doors, and we have this little well area here as well we can put things into. Overall, I quite like the interior of the car. It's perfectly serviceable. One thing that I do complain about is the actual sound system itself. So I'm not going to be able to do it justice here, but let me just show you how the sound system sounds. So I mean, the quality of the sound is it's okay for like classical music, but other types of music I've always found that this car doesn't really have the right kind of speakers. I mean, I can see we have speakers here on the side, and we have kind of a 3D audio. So I can see that we've got all these kind of fancy settings for sound, but it's really not that great. Just the actual quality of the actual speakers themselves is not fantastic. So it's something that I'd definitely consider upgrading. So the rest of the interior is pretty basic. So we have these visors as well, and they're not really lit in any way. They're just basic mirrors that can kind of pop out on the side. That's fine. The windows are not tinted at all, so we have a very clear view of the actual outside, and so probably in the summer it's going to get very hot. We also have the mirror controls here, so this is available on the Excite and exclusive models. We can twist this around quite easily. So the other setting that's quite interesting in this panel is called the KERS setting. So this stands for Kinetic Energy Recovery System. So toggling this will change the KERS level of the regenerative braking. So if I toggle this now, I can see this number 2 here. That's what I normally like to set it on. 1 is kind of like a normal car, and 3 is the highest level of KERS that we can have. So when it's on 1 and you accelerate, and when you take your foot off the pedal, it will just continue rolling kind of like a normal car, and it will regenerate a little bit. And then 2 is kind of progressively more, and 3 is I would say quite restrictive, because what happens is that when you take your foot off the gas pedal, then the car kind of more abruptly stops, almost like it's braking, and each time it brakes, it's actually regenerating a bit of energy, so it's more energy efficient to use 3, but I prefer to stick it to 2 when I can. The other thing is the mode button. So if I toggle between different modes, right now it's an N, which is normal. So if I switch to sport mode, it travels a lot faster, accelerates much faster, but uses much more energy. And there's also eco mode as well. So I normally stick it in either eco mode or normal mode. What I feel that it does at the moment is limit the amount of acceleration that happens at any one time. It's normally better to stick within the 0 to 60 range here, or speed, and if we accelerate too quickly or we hit a speed that's not efficient, then we use much more battery than normal. So I'm just looking at the actual battery levels as well. There's not really much information that's given here. We just have the kind of charge level here and an estimate of the actual amount of distance that we can actually travel. So 171 miles based on 86% charge. We have a little bit more info if we go down into the panel based on the steering wheel controls. At the moment, I'm not really sure how to take advantage of the information that's presented here. It's pretty basic. It's telling us 171 miles. I haven't been able to do that much testing on the range itself. This number seems to fluctuate wildly based on what kind of speeds we're driving, especially if we go on the motorway. That will reduce quite a lot. If we're traveling around the city in low speeds, then this will increase. So this is kind of a range, and it's a rule of thumb. So the stated WLTP range is 214 miles. I'm under no illusion that this is going to reach that range. It's probably going to hit my estimate about 170 miles on average, but it's a pretty decent range for this type of car. In the future, I'll do another video about the actual range that I can achieve with this car and whether these estimates are actually accurate or not. So the typical charger that this car comes with is the standard 3-pin charger. So this is just a normal house plug charger, and it delivers quite a slow charge rate. And we have this kind of power brick here, which just tells you if it's charging, and this plug just plugs into the front and it will deliver a kind of slow trickle charge. People call this the kind of granny charger just because it's a little bit slow. This particular car also comes with the Type 2 charger, so this is free with the Affinity scheme, and normally you have to pay for this type of charger, and this is used to connect to various charging networks which are untethered, so that's quite nice to have. The charge port is at the front of the car, and all we have to do is kind of press that logo, and then we have access to the actual charge slots here. The cover is unlocked when you unlock your car, and you can lock your car when you're actually charging it, so it's actually quite nice and secure and safe to put in. So I'm just doing a little bit of a test charge with this 3-pin plug charger into my in-laws house, going through the window, and right now it's showing 68%, and it's going to charge in a record 17 hours it looks like, but always good to top up a little bit wherever you can. We're not going to stay. Okay, so I'm looking at this around an hour later, and it's gone up by 3%, and it's still saying that the remaining time is 17 hours. So I think that in reality, this kind of car charge is going to take a really, really long time to do. So obviously you can see that the 3-pin charger is very, very slow. So it's going to take many, many hours to charge. It's actually sufficient for my needs. An overnight charge on the 3-pin charger is probably enough to last me a week or even more. But if I know that I'm going on a long trip and I need to charge very quickly, I know that there's various places that I can charge. I use Zap Map. I can go to, say, a BP Pulse and just pay as you go and charge at 50 kilowatts. And that will mean that I can charge from 0 to 80% in about 30 minutes. And that's the charge rate that this MG5 accepts. I believe it can actually go higher than that, depending on the charger, but it's not rated for that. I feel like the charging infrastructure is quite developed now, so we can definitely take the car quite far out of London and inside London, and there's plenty of places to charge, whether it's a slower charger or a very fast charger, and we can always use the capacity of the car, which is relatively high, to travel quite far, and always use a motorway service station or something to fast charge the car while we wait. And I think that the 214 miles is perfectly sufficient for that, and kind of in conjunction with the charging infrastructure is not too bad. Okay, so I'm going to hand it over to Mrs Tsai, who's going to offer her opinions on the MG5. What do you like about the car and what don't you like about the car?
Okay, some of the pros is that it's certainly really spacious. Actually, it might even be a little bit too spacious. I've got so much room at the front, more so than the previous RAV4, and even more
on
so
the passenger
than,
side as well.
on
right?
the passenger side.
Yeah, it is quite roomy.
So I feel like the boot could have been a bit bigger if we didn't have as much unnecessary space. The steering was a lot lighter compared to the RAV4. You don't need to grip it as hard, and you don't need to be as aggressive or as physical with it. It's much lighter, and feels, for me anyway, it feels a bit more responsive. And what else do I like? I don't really like the infotainment system, but I think now that you've shown me where you plug it in to the iPhone, it's a little bit more easier to use. It's a bit slow and not so responsive.
I mean, even with Apple CarPlay, it is very laggy. So when you press on the screen, there's a distinct kind of lag that you have with your finger.
I think it could also be slightly bigger as well.
Yeah, it's kind of tiny.
Yeah. The sound system, I'm sure you've talked about it, it's not great. But then you're not really here to listen to great music in the car. It's overall, I think it's a really nice family car. It's just exactly what we need. Space, it's the right price, it's electric. That's it.
How did you like the experience of driving the car?
It was a bit strange without the handbrake, having the button to press for parking.
Instead of a big lever thing.
Yeah, it was quite intuitive. It was quite easy after a few minutes. I think the biggest thing for me to get used to was the steering, because I didn't need to put so much effort, and also the braking. I think I needed to actually press down a lot more to get what I wanted, to slow down to the right speed. But
yeah, at the beginning you were pressing it and it was juddering the car a bit too much.
Yeah,
it's quite sensitive brake, so you have to get used to it. It's also because when you brake as well in this car, it's regenerating the battery level as well. So I think that makes it a little bit more kind of powerful, right? So you press it a little bit and it kind of stops the car more.
Yeah, I think, it doesn't need to be as roomy, for me anyway. I'm not the tallest
Well, you can move your seat forward a bit more and then you get
shortest.
a bit more space here, but
Yeah, but I think
this has moved forward a bit already, so
I think the boot could have been bigger.
the boot's almost the same size as the old car.
Yeah.
It's only 10 litres less, right?
Yeah.
But still pretty good.
Yeah, that's it really.
Okay, thank you very much. So the last thing I want to talk about is basically the look of the car. So I think that in terms of priority, the look of a car is pretty low on my list of why I want to buy a car. But obviously, no one wants to have something that's, ugly. And this particular car, I think, is very, very kind of boring looking. It looks like every other estate car that you'll find in the world, really. And it looks completely like a normal internal combustion engine car. You'd not be able to pick this out on the street very easily. It's not like a Tesla, which you can kind of tell straight away. It's not like a Kia Soul or something like that, where you can kind of tell that it's an EV. And I don't really find it particularly offensive. It's just very, very kind of normal. So there's not really much I can really add to this. I mean, a lot of people think that it looks kind of boring and it looks ugly. It looks like an old man's car. But for me, it just looks kind of very inconspicuous, and there's not really much I can really say about it. It looks kind of very normal, and I'm very happy with it in terms of how it looks, because inconspicuous is sometimes what you kind of want, especially when you're parking your car in central London. So as you might be able to tell, I do actually really like this car. Despite the fact that it's quite plain and boring, it is very functional. And I think that it's probably the best value car that you can buy for a family that's an electric vehicle. And it's, fulfills all of my criteria that I need as a family person in London. And I can't really think of any major disadvantages. The main thing is that it's pretty much no frills. And I'm sure that when MG release a new updated version of this car, it's going to have some of these missing features that we're kind of looking forward to. So I do really like this car, and If you have any questions about MG5 ownership, please leave a comment. I'll be happy to answer any questions. If you'd like me to make a video about any other aspect of MG5 ownership, I'd be really happy to do so. I've got lots of ideas, and you know, making car videos is not my normal YouTube wheelhouse, so I'd be happy to try if this video gets any kind of traction. If you made it all the way through here, please leave a comment, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next tech video.